Today we are in London. We're going to be talking to people about climate change, what we can do about it, and that's quite important that we're mentioning we rather than you, because it's a collective responsibility. What are people going to say? What are the solutions? What are the problems? We're here to find out.
The thing that worries me is seeing statistics about like big companies and how much they make like most of the percentages of like carbon emissions and stuff like that, whereas we can do our bit and everyone is, but I think it starts with them. And also food. Like I am a meat eater. I've tried being vegan a little bit before, but I think that's the way forward. I think in the next like 30-40 years, because we're just gonna deplete everything.
And I mean, it's quite interesting that you're saying like, what can I do versus what are we going to do? And even as, I don't know how high up you are in Percival, but like if you've made that, yeah, well, if you've made that effort to, as a company, pivot towards more sustainable manufacturing, that's massive, and that's more than any one person can do.
Yeah,
so that's great.
That's it. That's why that's why it was so nice to get involved. You've got to be, of course, it's more than just sustainable. It's about sustainable business models and paying people enough to survive, which is exactly what we're looking at doing. And smaller collections mean less environmental waste too.
I feel like a lot of people are saying things like that, like us, like normal people have to do a lot of stuff, but I feel like it's the big companies that are the main problem. And they slogan things like, oh yeah, we're helping save the planet, but they're not really doing much. So I feel like they're the most problem, while they kind of put the blame on just normal people.
Let's start by the government subsidizing green energy technologies instead of fossil fuels. I think we need to be investing in green energy and how we can change the way we live in a fundamental way. So I think that starts with technology, research and development. Also, I think we should be limiting the way the industry utilizes our environment. For instance, we should be setting cap and trade schemes. We should make sure that the industry is owning up to what they're doing, not the spillover costs that we face as a society. I think we shouldn't be paying for those, not our environment, not us. I think it should be those that have the primary responsibility in what's happening. But of course there are also things that we can do as individuals. We need to make sustainable choices with our lives. We need to make sure that we limit our plastic consumption. All these things, they really make a difference.
Plant more trees. Reduce, reuse, recycle.
So I think one good way to help combat climate change is reducing your intake of meat. So I've become vegetarian since last year, but hoping to go vegan.
Killed it. We're asking people today what they think we should do about climate change, and what's your thought on the matter?
Well, I don't drive and I don't own a car, but I think most people should have electric cars. I mean, they're expensive now, but we know the price comes down when everybody wants them. So move to electric cars, electric transport, how to create, battery really. The batteries are getting smaller and so on. So I think that's one good way, because a lot of the pollution comes from petrol-driven engines, diesel-driven engines. If you take those out, you've got a much cleaner world to begin with, but you've got to take them out first.
It's a lot bigger than people on the street and stuff. It's you could say it's almost systematic in a way.
Okay, I think it's a difficult question in a certain sense, but I think that also ourselves we can do for sure something. I was shocked when I arrived here in London and I couldn't do a differentiate garbage in my building. So I think that was a shocking thing for me, because in Italy everywhere you put glass with glass, plastic with plastic, and putting everything together at the beginning was a really difficult effort for me. So I think that starting from our own actions, it's already a very good start. Obviously also governments should do their parts, but I think also citizens have really to do their part, for example with garbage and everything.
We're just gonna have to stop doing stuff that's causing it, innit? So driving, all that stuff, is turn the cars into electric and that. You see when we dash rubbish and that, on the floor and that, pick it up and that.
Everyone should start walking, innit? Everyone should start walking. Too many cars. It's healthier for you as well. It's healthy.
Good ideas, How about you, Lady?
Biodegradable thingamajiggies. That's what they taught me at school.
I don't know. I don't really have any hope at the moment. I think more so like government aren't going to do anything because they don't see anything with longevity, and they're only just like kind of in positions of power because they are power hungry rather than having empathy for people.
It's a matter of companies, technology companies, giving up the right to sort of control oil and gas and move away from oil and gas, and for governments to make it profitable for companies to develop these technologies because they're there. I mean, I was looking at a report the other day about a light bulb, and you could have a light bulb that can last 100 years, but they don't make them. Why? Because it pays to make light bulbs that don't last that long.
Planned obsolescence.
Yeah. So the technology's there. It's just that the powers that be are not really interested in having solutions for today, and the solutions are there, but it's not financially beneficial for them.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because you're tapping into kind of long-term thinking as well, which just isn't fashionable nowadays. You've got 4-year election cycles, so like you can't really implement policy for that. So I think it's a really key issue. You know?
I mean, electric cars, fine. We haven't got the infrastructure for it. So if everybody went out and bought electric cars tomorrow, it's going to break the system. We're not generating enough renewable power. There are ways to do it, but they're just not interested because it's not making the money today.
It's more easier thing to do with just reduce consumption of not just what we wear, but what we eat and what type of things we eat in terms of meat products. Reduce the reliance on people having to eat meat every day, buying new clothes all the time, because all that has such a huge unseen cost to the environment that people don't consider it as even a cost. Water, for example.
What are we leaving our future generations?
This is the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing.
It's
scary.
yeah.
Scary.
It's scary. It's scary to. I mean, we've lived our lives, and if we think of the air we're breathing, how different it is. Like, I come from Delhi. When I was growing up in Delhi, it was fine. Now Delhi, it's like breathing in smoke.
Listen, it's been so good talking to you, and really I appreciate your time. And thank you so much. Have a lovely day.
So your Instagram pages?
Yes, so it's @EcoTravelW David.